There's two worlds in speaking they need to master. There's the inner world of confidence, and there's the outer world of content, right? The inner world of confidence is the thinker behind the speaker, and the outer world of content are the words in front of the speaker. Today, we're going to talk about the outer game, because that's what you requested, and specifically we'll talk about storytelling. Why do you think storytelling is relevant in the corporate environment?
It's context.
Okay, connecting with people.
Capturing attention. It triggers emotions.
Since it's a storytelling seminar, let me share with you guys a quick story. In 1997, I was in chiropractic school, and my really, really close good friend nominated me for class president, knowing that I'm terrified of public speaking. So as you can imagine, I had that butterfly feeling in my stomach, hands were soaked, but I couldn't get out of it. So I knew that my voice would only last 30 seconds. Literally my voice, my nerves would shut down my vocal cords, and I would have no voice. So I knew I had to be, concise and precise. And so all I said was, look, when we graduate as doctors, no one's going to ask us what our grades were. So if all the A students help all the C students, we're all going to graduate with B's. So I got lucky because I got the message out there, but that was it. So when it was a tie, and so when I went back to Canada for my break, I said to my mom, I feel like I want to spend more time with family. The truth was I didn't want to have to go through another speech competition. I didn't want to, stand on stage and speak. And so I lost by default because I didn't show up. And of course, I sat in the audience while I watched my fellow classmate evolve as an individual, as a person, evolve professionally, and take his life to the next level while I shrunk in the audience. And that's when I learned that ineffective speaking always costs you more than you think, and costs you even if you're speaking for free. Does anyone know what a rusk is? Any South Africans in the group? Correct. Yeah. Like a biscotti, right? Yeah. Okay, so you guys have all had a rusk or a biscotti? Yeah. Like a really tough cookie that you'd want to maybe dip. Okay, this is the biscotti. I'm going to go around the room, and I want you just as short, punchy, sweet as possible. I want you just to sell me the rusk. Short as possible.
Okay. The best biscotti ever.
Okay, perfect.
Oh my gosh, that's melting.
Even Garrett gave it a little Arabic biscuit.
Do you want to change your life?
Right. Guys, this is a true story, okay? So I was in South Africa, and I was delivering a talk. The lady who hosted me has a multi-million-dollar home, bring experts around the world to speak on their subjects. So I was one of the speakers. So before the talk, we were having tea and this biscotti thing. So I was like, what is this? And she said, oh, it's a biscotti, kind of you dip it in your tea. I was like, oh, okay. Then grandpa came along. And I was like, these are really good. He's like, do you know the story of the rusks? And I was like, no. He's like, when South Africa was under occupation, created these rusks, and they didn't put any egg in it so it wouldn't go bad. And so they could, escape occupation. So I was like, wow, so these are like freedom biscuits. He's like, yeah. That's the power of a story, right? Marketing is great, but storytelling is selling. Now, you know what else is interesting about this young lady who invited me to speak there? So I was a full 8-hour program on my speakology talk. And she said to me before the talk, Oudi, I'm kind of embarrassed. And I said, why? She said, because you're talking about the fact that everyone has a story, but I genuinely don't have a story. And so here's how she introduced me, right? So she came on stage and said, hello, everybody. I just want to introduce you to Dr. Oudi. He's a speaker, and he does these things, and he has this topic, and he's going to talk. And I said to her, everyone's got a story. Listen to her story that she forgot. She's driving in the car after leaving her day job. She was working at the bank. She gets in the car. She's driving home, and she gets held at gunpoint. Guy hijacks her car, accidentally shoots the door. It ricochets off the door and shoots her in the leg and she's back in the hospital. Okay? Quits her job and says, I want to use my home to bring experts in to teach my kids things that they're not going to learn in school. Very different introduction. Would you agree? Yeah. If she says, I would like to welcome you all here. I opened up my home because this happened and our first speaker is so-and-so. Very different impact. Do you agree? Yeah. That's the power of storytelling. So what I'm going to share with you guys is a 3-step approach to speaking. And there is a storytelling piece because storytelling is not the only approach, but I'm going to share with you guys that storytelling focused approach. But I'm going to share with you guys my 3 steps without saying a word. You're going to know what my 3 steps are. I will just gesture 1. This is step 1. This is step 2. And this is step 3. And I want you to tell me what the name of my approach is. Are you ready? It's the bow and arrow approach. It's 1, the arrow, 2, the bow, 3. So it's uncover, assemble, share. Got it? Anytime you're speaking, you think of these 3 things. I'm telling you, it will take the anxiety out of speaking because it'll help you uncover the content real quick. We're going to go through each of the 3 steps. What does uncover mean? What does assemble mean? And what does share mean? Cool? Then we'll open up for Q&A. I'll share with you a story afterwards so you guys can see. I've already shared a few. I'll share with you a story afterwards. And then I want you to be able to figure out what are the key elements in a story. Okay? There's 10. I'm going to give you 3 today. Number 1, uncover. So what is this? What is this thing I pulled out of my back?
It became visible for you?
No, but what really is it? But what is this? What is it called, this thing? Yes, it's the bow and arrow, right? This is the arrow. Okay, what's at the tip of the arrow?
It's pointy.
Pointy. It's a point. Okay, so the first thing you got to do is you got to uncover your point. What's the point? Haven't you heard people talking? You're thinking, what's the point? And your eyes glaze over as you're telling your story. And you're like, what is the point? We've been there. We've delivered it and we've received it, right? So point. What is the point? So usually when you're speaking, you're like, okay, I want to talk to the team about our numbers. I coached someone at the UN. She worked at the WHO and she was into statistics. So the first thing I said is, what's the purpose of your talk? She's like, to share the stats, to share the data. Okay, that's a point. It's a point. But guess what you got to do with that point? You got to sharpen it. And the way you sharpen it is you go down up to 10 levels. So you ask yourself, what's the point? And then you say, what's the point beneath that point? What's the deeper version of the point? What's the deeper until you get the actual bottom basement point. Just like when I work with fears, you know, when I start with, what's your number 1 fear? But what does that fear really represent? Because you don't want to put a fire that's burning in the basement, you don't want to spray water at the peak of Burj Khalifa. You want to spray it at the basement, right? Same thing with your point. You want to find out what is the sharpest point, because the sharper the arrow, the deeper it penetrates into the hearts and minds of your audience. Okay? So, what's your point? Sharpen that point. What is it really about? What is it really about? What is it really about? Until it's about this. You want to get it down to what I call a phrase that pays. A phrase that pays. And a phrase that pays is a phrase that's melodic and that rolls off the tongue and that's under 10 words. A phrase that pays is melodic, rolls off the tongue, and is under 10 words because then it's memorable. Like the phrase could be, to grow is first to know.